may have been irritated with me already this week. And if you were, that's okay. I'm not upset about it, but I do want to talk about it. Here's where it usually comes up. So you as the leader leading this organization, leading this department, you have shared the priority and everything that it'll take to support it 3 times already, right? Once in your all hands meeting, once in your team huddle, and once in that one-on-one with that guy who just clearly still doesn't get it. And you can feel it from him, that eye roll that is brewing underneath the surface. You know that he is just as annoyed with you as you are with the fact that you have been saying this since you were blue in the face. And the frustration that gets pointed at me is people think that I want you to just communicate more. And they're thinking, I've given the message. I was consistent. I'll send out emails. Do you want me to write a memo? I will give them all of the information that they need. Well, my friend, I am not telling you to communicate more. I'm not even telling you to communicate more clearly in this instance. You are probably given all the facts, my friend. And what I am going to give you today is a real tactical how-to walkthrough to help people understand the strategy behind your decisions so that they are able to make those decisions right along with you instead of being convinced all along the way. Because you are communicating with them. I know you are. You wouldn't be here if you didn't understand that communication was important, and you didn't get where you are today without being decent at communication. You got here because you were able to absorb all of the ambiguity, all of the information that is swirling around in people's heads, and translate that into action. The problem is you have been doing so much translating that you're basically communicating a to-do list. You know those lists that you make for like your kids in the morning when you know that they have a day off of school or they're off for summer break, and you put together this long list of everything that you want them to do. And then you're annoyed because something that you didn't think to put on the list because you thought it was a given isn't done. Sure, maybe they vacuumed the floors, but they didn't pick up their cereal bowl off the table. It's because you are still carrying that mental load. And that's the same thing that's happening for you at. And what I want for you is to transform that to-do list into something more meaningful so that you and your team are holding that mental load together. Because I'll be honest with you, holding this yourself is probably costing you your sanity. And even more than that, it's costing you the engagement of your team. Because every time a priority shifts, right? Every time you hand down this new instruction to people, your team quietly files it away as just another random change from leadership, just another time that they got hit from the side. And they're not trying to be difficult. Just like your kids complaining that you asked them to pick up that cereal bowl aren't trying to be difficult. They really don't understand what the bigger vision is. And so they're just not sure why you're upset that they didn't do, just the things on the list. So what do you do in those circumstances? I know because I get the messages from you guys. I get the emails and the DMs and everything else that says, I am already communicating so much. So you think that I want you to communicate more. But my friend, it is not about frequency. I am sure that you're communicating plenty. It's that you're cascading the what and skipping the why. You're sharing those to-dos and skipping why they need to be done. So most leaders are trying to solve this through more meetings where they say more words, right? More Slack updates so that people are getting it more immediately. More all hands recaps and memos and emails. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It'll work for that one specific decision that you are trying to explain. And then the next one will come along and they won't get that one either. And it's not their fault. You're back to square one. You're re-explaining from scratch. And it's because you taught them to just listen to your explicit directions. So this is where the really tactical piece comes into play. I learned this as leader standard work. I don't know if that's like the technical name for it. I have adapted it a bit for my own purposes, and have had it work really well for me and for clients. But it all started from leader standard work, which I think comes out of Six Sigma. But the reason that this becomes so essential for leaders is because it allows you to explain one time what you need to do or what you need to have done, connect it clearly to why we are doing it, and then drop it completely. So when you are working in person, I really encourage you to put this on a board, like a whiteboard that you can wheel around or have set up in a open area that is available to everyone at any time. I've had it set up where it's in someone's office. It's just not as accessible that way. Another option is to do, if you're virtual or you are meeting virtually with people, is to have it just on a PowerPoint, right? You can have a PowerPoint slide deck that everyone has access to, and you can put it in there. If you have project management software, then all bets are off. There are all sorts of cool ways that you can do this, but I want to give you just this really simple example. So what we are going to do first is to put the values across the top of your board, okay? The order of this does matter a little bit for psychological mental mapping type purposes, so just stick with me. We're going to take our values and we're going to put them across the top. For sake of our example, we are going to say we have customer experience as one of our top values. Innovation can be one of our top values, and collaboration, right? We want people working collaboratively. Could be any values that you have within your organization. I have seen organizations that need to have 8 to 10 of these across the top. If that is what it looks like for you, that is totally fine. Ooh, that is still kind of small. Okay. Then we are going to do OLSA. And yes, those are my terms. We do consider it OLSA. There's good reason for it. We have obstacles, lessons, solutions, and achievements, okay? Obstacles, lessons, solutions, and achievements. And then you're going to have your statuses along the side. So these could be anything that are major goals that are consistent always, okay? So again, these could be anything for your organization, for your team specifically, but these are things that don't really change for you. So for the sake of our example here, we're going to have a status on retention. We're going to have one on revenue, right? This team that we are using for an example is always focused on retaining customers and increasing revenue. And then they're also going to have a goal around call times, okay? This is like the blank template that your team is going to use all of the time. They are always going to be focused on the company values on the top, on their specific goals as a team that they're trying to reach along the side, and OLSA throughout the middle, okay? These things could be written on there so that they're erasable. They could also just be put up in paper because those are not going to change. The goal here is for you as the leader to facilitate the meeting and make the connections for people. Your team actually leads the meeting. So you might have Susie come in, over the course of the week and write down one great solution that she came up with. One way that they are going to make sure that they reach out to those customers every single day. Fantastic. When you get into your team huddle, you say, who wrote this solution? Susie jumps in and says, oh my gosh, I, put this into place and it made such a big difference for me. That's amazing. How do we implement that everywhere? Then maybe Timmy has some little obstacle that he's running into. It's making it really hard for him to hit his goals over here because of this obstacle he's seeing. Then you can do your statuses, your retention, revenue, and call time. You could do it as, complex as what are the actual numbers here? What is our percentage towards our goal, right? So maybe we are 25%, towards our goal on retention, and our, max goal is a 40% retention rate. Then great, maybe we know we're on track. Maybe you do it as simply as a color code. We can have stoplights, right? We could have a red, yellow, green, and we know that our call times are red, for example. And so that is what's going to go under there. You are going to have people add their colors to their goals. As everyone's talking through this, as your team is leading the discussion here, you get to say, Susie, that solution you brought, that does amazing work for our customer experience. Now we want to make sure that we collaborate with the rest of the groups in our department, the rest of the, offices in our region, and make sure that all of them can roll this out. It looks like you're doing really well on retention. Do you think that you would be able to work with the rest of the teams to get this rolled out? Do you see how I did that? You took Susie's idea, you complimented for her on it, you gave her the acknowledgement of the hard work that she did, you connected it to your values up here, and then you asked her if she wanted to take it on because she was in good shape on the things that she was doing. Now, you might also say, oh, it looks like our call times are falling off. Looks like we're having a challenging time over here. Let's look at our obstacles. What's going on? Who wrote this one? Tommy, what can you tell us about that obstacle? How's that getting in your way? Does anyone have any lessons learned from that we can share? Anything that we could use as a potential solution, right? That we can try out and we can regroup on next week. Anytime we're doing these things, look, we are innovating. We are coming up with new ways to work through this struggle. It allows you to have this conversation where you are bringing your people in to the overall strategy. We know we're always working towards these values. We know that these goals are not going anywhere, but look, we might add on a little bit of work, right? There might be a new project that someone needs to take on, all because we are able to look at things through a lens of our values, our goals, and our obstacles, lessons, solutions, and achievements all at the same time. Your goal as a leader is to be able to point to each area as you're discussing them. And obviously not just a point, but to actually draw that connection for people. And if you're not sure, throw it back to them. If you're coming up with work that doesn't fit into this, then that's a question of your real priorities. And that allows you to strategically bubble these things up to your senior leadership. To say, hey, we've been spending a ton of time on training these other departments, and I get that it's collaborative and that we want to support collaboration, but it's taking us away from these other things. We identified that one of our obstacles to our call time was that we continue to train on this. At what point are we going to be able to hand that off? Think about the way that just prepared you to have that conversation. Think about the way that your boss would receive that. Doesn't necessarily mean that the work's going to get taken off of your plate, but it does mean that they can see in you the ability to put all of these pieces together, right? Imagine, right? If you were, coming into your huddle on a Tuesday, I would recommend that you do this 3 times a week, if not daily, right? And said, hey, this is where we're at. We have this shift, but it's actually going to allow us to provide a stronger customer experience and decrease our call time so that we are better positioned for all of these other things. Imagine if you could come in and describe it that way, Have your team understand the importance of this priority shift that you have. And now you're not explaining it 3 times because they have their own frame of reference. They have their own multi-level filter that they are looking at it through, right? Where they can already see where the decision is made. Susie might say, hey, I have capacity. I'm beyond on track for my stuff. Well, Tom has to say, hey, I would love to support this, but I am going to need to take a step back. Where you have people who actually understand where their capacity is and what they're doing, and where they can see the overall vision and maybe even be bought into the overtime or the working through lunch that's going to get them to where they need to be. It's not about communicating more, it's about communicating intentionally. When you communicate intentionally, when you cascade the why and not just the what, this is what you get. You get fewer repeat explanations. They've seen it, they've taken part in it, they understand what it takes to keep things moving forward. You get a team that's able to make good calls without waiting on you to step in. They understand what the priorities are and they understand where the capacity is. They are able to look at that strategically and holistic without you even being there. And you get a level of trust that means that your boss or your boss's boss isn't asking if you remembered to tell so-and-so this or loop in that other supervisor on that. They know you have a handle on how all of this works together and how to keep all of the teams working toward the same end. The shift, it doesn't come from trying harder. It doesn't come from sending more emails or scheduling more meetings. It comes from building a completely different habit in your communication, one that is genuinely built strategically to focus on every lens, not just what we do, but why we do it and who is impacted by it. Now, I would love to hear from you if this is something that you do in your workplace. Maybe you are the one leading it and facilitating it. Maybe you are the one that is just a participant in it. But I would love to hear if you have something like this that is going on in your workplace and what you would like to do to make it even more effective. If you know a leader who is frustrated by the amount that they are communicating, please go ahead and share this video with them. This might be the exact example that they needed to make the shift in their life. All right. I am so looking forward to hearing from you, and I will see you in the next one.